To calibrate the rate, what you'll want to do is on any idle screen, press the yes and exit buttons on the outside at the same time to enter the menu. You'll see that the menu is denoted by 2 arrows. Use the menu button to scroll through until you reach calibrate rate. When this is shown, press yes to enter the submenu or the sub-process, and this will give you a few options to calibrate the rate of the pump. The first screen is going to allow you to press yes to prime the pump, and what this is going to do is let you basically bleed down the rate gauge or prime the pump, whatever you need to do to get ready for actually testing the pump itself. You can press no at any time to stop the priming, and that'll shut the motor off. The next screen is going to tell you to prepare the pump setting gauge, and this screen just acts as a buffer, so that it gives you some time to go over to the pump setting gauge, isolate it, and mark what the current level of chemical is in the pump setting gauge. From here, press menu to scroll to the next screen. And this is where you'll select the test duration. So the critical part of calibrating these pumps is selecting the right test duration. So if you have a Kinco 929 rate gauge, which is fairly standard in the industry, depending on the size of the pump, what you want to do is be able to pump that down from the highest point possible that's visible to the lowest point possible in the same calibration routine. So for instance, for a 3/8 inch plunger single head pump on that standard Kinco, starting around 10 seconds would likely be a pretty good starting point. If you accidentally make a mistake or you pump too far or not enough, you can always rerun this test pretty easily. So what we'll do here is we'll set the test duration to 5 seconds just for the sake of this video. And when you press menu, the test will begin. And what this is going to do is just run the motor for the 5 seconds. Assuming you have your rate gauges isolated, you'll notice that it's pumping down. On the right side of that screen previously, you'd notice that there's a counter. And if you're using the stroke input counter function on the controller, you will see that number increasing with the revolutions of the motor or the flow meter or whatever you're using to read pulses. So if the test was successful, this is where if you got a good test in terms of how much rate was drawn down in the gauge itself or how much chemical was drawn down in the gauge itself, this is where you'd press yes. If you press no, it'll bring you back and let you reset the test time and let you restart the test. So for now, we'll say yes plus the test was successful. And this is where you're going to enter the actual ticks dropped. So the ticks is 1 quart per day per 1 minute test, which is a fairly standard unit on a Kinco 929 or any other rate gauge that we typically see out in the field. So in a 5 second test, let's say we count the ticks and we see that 15 ticks were dropped in the rate gauge. So once you get the number that you're looking for, this is where you'd press menu to go to the next screen. It's just going to double check that you want to save the calibration, and this you can just verify those numbers look good and press yes to advance to the next screen. The number that's shown in the right here again is actually the pulses that were read during the test, which is another thing that's measured. It's not shown on this test in particular, but if you're using the stroke counting or the flow measurement option, you will see a value here, and that's actually going to create a K factor between number of pulses and the ticks that were dropped, or essentially the quarts that you injected. So to save calibration, we'll press yes. And then again, it's just going to ask you last time, exit and save. So here we'll press yes again, and the calibration's been saved. So anytime you use auto mode now, it will still use the calculated rate based on the pump settings we set up earlier. So what you'll want to do is just make sure that you enable calibrated mode on the controller. To do that, at this top level menu, we'll press menu until we get to controller settings. Press yes to enter the controller settings submenu. And under calibration method, you'll want to make sure that this setting is set to calibrated. And when this is set to calibrated and there's a calibration that exists that's been ran by the user, this is what's going to actually measure or apply that calibration factor that we just tested. So from here, you can scroll through by pressing menu to get to the end of this, to the exit and save. Or you can skip ahead and press exit, press menu whenever it comes up with exit and no save to scroll to the next option, hit exit and save, yes, and that's it.